Well, hello, everyone. My name is John Brenneman. I'm the president here at MOAA Vacations. I want to thank everybody for joining us today to talk about Atlas Ocean Voyages. What a fun event we're going to have today. Before we get started, I always like to let everybody know we are recording this webinar. So if either Tim or I say of anything of any interest to you, or if you want to review anything, just make a note at what time we say it. And then when you get the webinar, you can just fast forward to that part. But tonight, we will send everybody a link. We will upload this to our Facebook channel. This is my 97th webinar. I didn't start counting them until I saw I was at 95. So come January, we'll have to figure out something to do for the 100th. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit at the beginning. I'm going to talk a little bit like I normally do about MOAA Vacations. I'm also going to kind of do an overview of the signature groups. I assume everyone who's here today knows that next year in 2025, we have blocked the entire World Navigator for our 7-night Greek Isles cruise. That ship is, I think we're down to 8 staterooms. I think when we sent the email out, either last night or this morning, we were down to 9. So there is still a chance to go, but obviously very limited availability. But anyway, so after I get done talking, I am going to turn it over to Tim. Tim's going to talk about Atlas for those of you who are unfamiliar with them. They are one of the newer cruise lines in the industry. So completely understand if all of you aren't up to speed on them. And then after he talks about Atlas, we are going to talk about the 2026 MOAA Signature Group, which is Dublin to Lisbon, a Western Europe cruise, a great itinerary that I know a lot of folks have not done before. Most people either do Northern Europe or the Med. So we're kind of excited to be able to offer what technically would be considered a Western Europe itinerary, and we will get to this a little bit later on, but we do have the opportunity on that. That is a 10-night cruise. We do have an opportunity to do a back-to-back cruise where you would board the ship in Reykjavik and then sail 10 days to Dublin and then continue on from Dublin to Lisbon. And have that opportunity to go for the full 20 nights. One of the advantages of booking early is if you want to do that back to back, and I think most of the people who book so far have done that back to back, is to make sure that you can get the same stateroom for both sailings. While we're holding the entire ship for that Dublin to Lisbon itinerary, we are not holding the entire ship for that Reykjavik to Lisbon that Reykjavik to Dublin itinerary. So if you were interested in doing that full 20-night cruise, please get a hold of us as soon as possible because I think in January, if not January, February, they are going to open up to the general public for sale that Reykjavik to Dublin cruise. And not that you have to have it, but if you've ever done a back-to-back before, it is obviously much easier if you're in the same stateroom for both those sailings. You don't have to worry about switching staterooms. So, Tim, if you can go to the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about MOAA Vacations. I think most people, not everyone who signed up for this webinar have been on a webinar I've done before. So I'm going to go through this real quick, but we'd like to make sure we emphasize the thing that sets us apart from the other 30,000 travel agencies that are in the United States. We always start out about talking about service. I could talk about this for a long time, all the things we do, but basically what we have is we have a concierge level of service. We're here to help you with everything related to your cruise, not only beforehand and I guess during your cruise, but also afterwards. One of the things that we do is I personally help anyone if you have a trip insurance claim, fill out the paperwork for you, and then I walk that through. So hopefully no one ever has to use that. But obviously with the volume of business we do, I end up helping 1 or 2 members a week with that whole claims filing process. One of the ways I kind of try to sum up how the service difference is with MOAA Vacations as compared to, I guess, travel agencies that are out there working with the general public. Is we do provide service on a satisfaction guaranteed basis. And that means if you have any issue, problem, concern, that if your cruise consultant can't help you or you want my assistance, you talk to me directly. I am out of town from time to time. I do escort a number of MOAA groups. So if I'm out of town and it's something that might require a little bit more immediate assistance, you'll be assisted by Mike Tyrell, who's the vice president here. But you go basically all to either Mike or myself to make sure we get that problem resolved as quickly as possible and to your complete satisfaction. We do guarantee the lowest price. This comes up in a lot of webinars. If you want to ask the question at the end to Tim, we can have Tim speak to this as well. But I can tell you there are no promotional offers that Atlas has that we do not have access to. So going to another travel agency or Atlas is never going to get you a lowest price. And that applies with all of the vendors we work with, both cruise lines and tour companies. We do have a free amenity program. This is in recognition of your past and continued service. That is going to vary depending on the cruise line and the tour company, but it is just an added value amenity. Most cruises are an onboard credit. Most tours are additional dollars off, but there are some kind of variants on that when we start talking about 30 different vendors. And then group opportunities, which is, I assume, a reason a lot of you are here today, is to talk about the opportunity to travel with MOAA leadership and your fellow MOAA members on one of our signature groups. So this slide here kind of quickly goes through kind of the things that make signature groups unique. Tim, if you could go to the next slide for me. Let me start out, but before I kind of get into signature groups, to talk about the fact that we do have, in total, probably close to 2,000 groups held. A lot of these, however, for example, with Celebrity, who I know we talked about last month, we talked about the fact that I think we have like 500 groups with Celebrity. What we do in a lot of cases is we hold group space as soon as the space is released. So as soon as the cruise line releases space for a cruise, we hold group space. And then the typical scenario is the ship fills, the price goes up. So we have locked in savings on all those departure dates. And we do that with most of the what they would call mainstream or mass market cruise lines, the Princess, Holland, Celebrity, Royal, NCL, all of those. But we also do groups, smaller groups, which are not the signature groups. The advantage on going on a group departure, we've talked to some states about, some MOAA state councils about doing groups. Local chapters can do groups. You know, we have people that put groups together for either their family. Multi-generational cruising has gotten really big over the last 8 to 10 years, or a group of your friends or fellow members. And so we have groups, and the reason that most people will book a group is two main reasons. Number one is for the savings. That savings is in a combination of not only dollars off, but a lot of times additional amenities, and then the opportunity to travel with friends, family, fellow MOAA members. So now that we kind of know what a normal group is, kind of what makes the signature group special or different than the standard groups that we do throughout the course of the year. And the first one is the fact that they are hosted by MOAA leadership and staff. To me, this is something that I probably don't do a good enough job of explaining what a unique feature or option this is. And this gives you the opportunity to actually talk with MOAA leadership and get their insights on what the association is doing, where it's heading, those types of things. It's a great opportunity to have a cocktail or join them for dinner or something like that and kind of get the inside scoop of what's going on. It's also an opportunity for you to share your ideas, your comments, your feelings with the people that really matter. Yes, I understand that you can always send in an email, you can always call MOAA, but it's obviously a lot easier to discuss kind of your ideas or their ideas in a kind of relaxed vacation setting. As much as possible, we try to make them all inclusive. It kind of varies a little bit depending on, there's basically 3 types of travel that we do for signature groups: the river cruises, the ocean cruises, which are going to be on the Atlas yachts, and then land tours where we grab a couple of buses on a land tour. Um, so how all inclusive we can make them is going to kind of depend on the type of the signature group. But as much as possible, we try to put everything in one all inclusive price. We will talk today, or Tim rather, will talk today about what is included on Atlas and what is not. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can ask us. But we do a website for any signature group we do. So, for example, if you're interested in this Western Europe cruise, in the invitation, we sent you a link to the website. We will include it when we send you the webinar this evening. But you can go in, there's actually a page that actually lists all of the inclusions. We love to put together exclusive kind of onboard events and excursions. We are still working on those. We won't really know what those are for Western Europe probably for 9 to 10 months from now. So, but it's a while before we put them together. But to give you kind of a couple of ideas, so when we did Paris and Normandy in June, we did a couple of kind of exclusive events on board. And this is above and beyond the fact that we'll do a welcome reception and a farewell reception. So Paris and Normandy, the two events we did, I guess it's actually three. The night before we went to the beaches, we actually did a screening of Saving Private Ryan, which basically the concept there was to watch the first 35 minutes of that movie, which I think most of us have probably seen the night before you're on the beaches the next morning. But before that, we did kind of a group event where those people that had like a personal connection from a family member or something like that with Normandy to get up and have an opportunity to talk. A very I would say very moving event as people got up and shared kind of that thing, and then we watched the video. We did have a exclusive memorial service on Omaha Beach, and then we also did a exclusive memorial service on the ship. Everyone went up on deck. The MOAA leadership spoke. We actually did two Paris and Normandy, so either General North or General Kelly spoke. We then played taps, had a moment of silence, and then everyone was given a rose, which as a group we then tossed into the Seine. So that's kind of one idea of kind of what we've done. We have the next signature group we have that's going to go is Australia, New Zealand. That's a tour. So obviously we have some kind of limitations in the fact that while the buses are exclusively MOAA members, when you're at the hotel, we don't have the entire hotel. When we go to a lot of the sites, you know, there's going to be other tourists there. But so one of the things we put together, and once again, we always have a welcome reception and a farewell reception. But one of the things we put together on that is when we were at the Sydney Opera House. If you've been to Australia before, most people have done a tour of Sydney Opera House. We are actually going to have our farewell dinner in the Sydney Opera House. There is a restaurant there. And then after dinner, we're actually going to see a live performance there at the Sydney Opera House. That actually is with Colette. It's interesting. Colette, who's been doing, you know, Australia, New Zealand tours for probably 40, 50 years. They've been around for over 100. But they told us we are the first group that is ever going to do dinner and a performance at the Sydney Opera House. So that's the type of thing we talk about when we talk about exclusive events. Friends and family are invited. I don't think we've ever done a signature group where someone has not brought along friends or family. This can be a parent, this can be siblings, this can be your neighbors, this can be kids. We have no age restrictions for the signature groups. The vendor might, but a lot of times that's just going to be no infants, which most of the cruise lines, I think, don't allow kids below the age of 6 months. But anyway, we want you to have as much fun as possible when you're on this signature group. if you go on Greece with us on Atlas, or if you do the Western Europe. So if you sit there and say, it would be a lot more fun for me if my brother went, or I would love to take my kids, or whatever that is, absolutely bring them. In fact, you can bring friends and family on any trip you book through MOAA, and they would receive the same concierge level of service, the same savings, and the same amenities that you receive as a MOAA member. So we extend these MOAA amenities not only to members, but anyone who's traveling with the member. And then the fact it's a rare opportunity. We only have 3 signature groups next year. It would be Australia, New Zealand in May, the aforementioned Greek Isles, which is in August, and then in September, we have a river cruise, which is Burgundy, Provence. So next year, we have one of each. We have the tour to Australia, the yacht ocean cruise with Atlas to the Greek Isles, and then the Burgundy, Provence is a river cruise. In 2026, we only have 2 signature groups. Those are going to be a river cruise, which is highlights of Eastern Europe, which is Budapest to Bucharest. And then once again, the aforementioned Atlas cruise, the Western Europe cruise from Dublin to Lisbon. So there's not a lot of opportunities to join these. I will tell you they are the most popular thing we do. One of the things that I didn't mention until recently, and someone mentioned these after they got off Paris and Normandy, which is a feature of these, which I wasn't highlighting, but you will recognize when you get on board, and that's the added civility, respect, consideration that members have for each other on these groups. So if you imagine yourself, so there's only 92 staterooms on Atlas. So you get on board, so there's a little less than 200 people, but everyone on there is going to be a MOAA member or a MOAA guest. And the respect, consideration, whatever word you want to use that everyone has for each other, you can actually feel the difference. And we've all been on cruises or tours or something before that are kind of open to the general public. And we probably all traveled with people before who you're sitting at dinner or in your stateroom or your room that evening and go, oh my God, I would never want to travel with this person again. We really don't have that risk because of the civility, to use that word, that everyone has for each other. So that's kind of what the signature groups are. If you've been on one before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've not joined us on a signature group yet, one of the things I always say is they're addictive. We have people that have gone on one and then they end up going on one every year. They really are something that you have to experience to truly appreciate what they're like. And, you know, I mentioned this on the last time we did the Atlas webinar, which I guess was just back in October, is Atlas is actually the largest ships that we will probably do for a signature group, because on a 7-night cruise, and I understand in 2026 it's a 10-night cruise, but even in a 10-night cruise, if you get a ship much larger than 200 people, you'll probably get off that ship and feel like you didn't really have the opportunity to meet everyone. So the land tours are about 90 people. The river cruises, most river cruise ships are in that kind of 70 cabin range, so say 140 passengers. And then we're up to a little over 190 on Atlas. And much larger than that, I think you kind of lose. I think my concern would be we kind of lose that feel of being a tight-knit group. But even with Atlas, I think you're going to still get that. So one of the things I mentioned, if you read the June newsletter, is I talked about the fact that, the November newsletter, June, that was way off. The November newsletter, I mentioned the fact that in November, I actually sailed on Atlas. And if you have any questions, I mean, obviously Tim's been on them, but this is the first time I sailed on Atlas. And if you have any questions, you know, after Tim goes through Atlas and then goes through the Western Europe cruise itinerary and that kind of stuff, we're going to do a Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions you might have. But just a couple of things that I wanted to point out, kind of an overall kind of preview of Atlas, since I'm assuming most of you have not been on them before, is the difference between Atlas and ocean cruising. It is, in my mind, it really has more of the feel of a river cruise ship because of the size. I mentioned most river cruise ships are about 70 staterooms, some a little bit smaller, some a little bit larger. It really depends. The size of the river cruise ships, if you didn't know, is dependent upon the size of the locks on that river. So, whatever river you're on, if you're on the Douro River in Portugal, you're probably going to be on a ship that only has around 50 staterooms because the locks are much smaller. The Seine, you're probably going to be in that 65 range. And then when you get to the Rhine and the Danube and some of those rivers, that's where you get the ships that might be in that 75 to 80 stateroom kind of thing. So anyway, so a river cruise has 3 decks. It has about 70 cabins on average, something in that range. We're talking about a ship that has 5 decks, basically 5 decks, and has 92 staterooms. So it's not cabin wise, it's not much larger than the river ships, but the yacht itself is considerably larger. And the reason I bring up it's kind of got 5 decks is, one of the great things on a river cruise is it's normally like everything's 1 deck down or 1 deck up. They're not that long. They're very easy to get around. I will tell you that the Navigator, which was the ship I was on, is also very easy to get around on. I mean, you may have 2 decks up or 2 decks down. I will tell you, they have a couple of elevators. Most people, unless they had mobility issues, didn't use use the elevators, so there was never really a line for them because it's so easy just to go up 1 deck or down. The other thing is the staterooms are larger. If you look at a French balcony stateroom on river cruise ships, they're normally kind of in that 200 square foot range, typically a little smaller than that, that kind of 180, 190 kind of square foot range. An introductory French balcony room on Atlas is going to be 50% larger. They're going to be in that 300 square foot range and up, depending on what type of balcony you have. There are 2 types of balconies. I'll let Tim talk about that a little bit more, but there is the traditional step out balcony and then the balconies, which they call Juliet balconies, which the river cruise ships call French balconies. And I think we actually even have a photo of that. So I'll save that till then. But one of the other things is it's small. It allows the ship, when you look at the itinerary, to get into ports of call that the larger ships don't go to, which is a huge plus because when you get off a ship, we will have ports of call, for example, when we talk about the Greek Isles cruise next year, where we'll be the only ship there. So it won't be 5 cruise ships with thousands of people each on them, all getting off the same day, basically the same time, which just inundates the shops and there's crowds and there's lines. You imagine we pull into like a port of call like Nafleon. There will be no other ships there. So when we get off with our group of 190 people, it's not kind of overwhelming it. But the other thing, to kind of go back to the Navigator, that I think is great about it, having been on it, is there is a show lounge. Don't have that on river cruise ships because, once again, we're talking, we have a lot more room, even though we don't have that many more people, but it's still a small yacht, but maybe close to twice the size of a river cruise ship. So there are 2 dining venues. There are 2 lounges. There's a theater, so you have more entertainment options in the evening. So you have 2 different lounges you can go to, or you can go to the theater. For dining, you have the main dining room. There is a steakhouse that's up on the top deck. So they do have kind of an alternative dining, no charge for it, but you need to have reservations. For those who got on early, Tim and I were talking about Paula Pantry, which is a place that when you're on one of these Atlas ships, most people kind of visit there at least once a day. It is kind of a coffee shop. I mean, Tim might speak to this more to kind of give a better kind of official kind of definition of it, but it's there. You can go, you can get coffee, you can get tea, you can get, they have, I don't know, bagels and danishes and rolls and those types of things. So it's that kind of like an onboard Starbucks, for lack of a better word. No charge for it. I don't think it's open 24 hours, but it's open, pretty much, unless you're getting up in the middle of the night. Tim, you can speak to this. Is Paula Pantry open 24 hours?
No, so I'll address that, but 6:30, roughly 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. till 6:30 p.m.
Okay. So we, during the day, most people stop by. Once again, another little place where you can sit. So, I really I can't speak. I went into it thinking I was going to love it, and I loved it. You know, and Mike had already been, for those of you who spoke to Mike, but I loved it even more than I thought of. You know, and you can only garner so much by looking at websites or watching videos and those types of things. But it truly is not a ocean cruise experience for those of us who've been on these cruise ships that have 5,000 people on them. I just can't speak highly enough of how excited we are. We've already kind of started talking to Atlas about doing another cruise in 2027. I think, you know, kind of long term plans would be river cruise every year, Atlas cruise every year, and every other year do a land tour. So that's kind of the current plan for signature groups going forward. So anyway, I talked a bit longer than I normally do. I know Tim's got a lot to go through. Once again, Tim's going to go through this. If you look at the bottom of your screen or put your cursor down or whatever, you should see a little box with a question mark that says Q&A. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in now. I will be answering questions during Tim's presentation. I'm actually going to turn off my camera. But I will be answering questions during Tim's presentation. And then once again, when we get done, Tim and I will go through all the questions that everybody has. But we appreciate you joining us. We hope you'll really consider joining us on one of these signature groups. I know you're going to have a wonderful time. So, Tim, tell us more about Atlas.
Thank you, John. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's John covered a little bit of what I'm going to talk about, but I'll probably go in depth a little bit more. But I just really want to talk to you about Atlas Ocean Voyages. We are an intimate yachting expedition company. And when people think about expeditions, they think about maybe Antarctica, the Arctic, but we take it one step further, and I'll address that in a second. But we've been around for a little over 3 years, and we're growing. And we started off with one vessel, and we now are up to three vessels with a plan for additional tonnage down the road. So we're small, but we're mighty, and I've been in this cruise business for 32 years, and by the way, I've been dealing with John for a gazillion years, and I'm telling you, they do it right. I'm just blown away on how well they do things there. So basically, what I want to do is I just kind of want to talk to you a little bit about us. I put in the World Navigator. It's actually the World Voyager, which you'll be sailing on, and our Epicurean expeditions, our MOAA exclusive sailings. But most importantly, I'm going to concentrate on the one that John talked about, just to kind of give you a little bit of a commercial. Where do we sail? We don't sail. I mean, we have great destinations. We do Antarctica, Patagonia, the Falklands, South America. We do some transoceanic sailings. The Med, we're pretty heavy into the Med. Northern Europe, Iceland, Greenland, and the Arctic. And hopefully you'll join us on this cruise in 26. If you don't, the dates don't work, then obviously John or Mike can direct you to one of our other fabulous itineraries, because like I said, we are growing. So we are an expedition company. Basically, it's a journey with a purpose, particularly of in-depth exploration and discovery. And I'll get into a little bit about the vessels, because that really is what makes it, I believe. So we do polar expeditions, we do Epicurean expeditions, and then we do cultural expeditions. I'm not going to go through every thing here, but this is kind of where we're at as a company. So we have three different expedition series, I guess, if you will. The size of our vessels, it's only 10,000 gross registered tons, which may not mean much to you, but they're small, intimate yachts. It truly is a yachting experience. So we're very, very destination focused. I mean, so much so that on this itinerary that John has selected, and Mike, it looks like I think you dock in every single port. I'm looking at it right now, and I believe you dock in every single port. So that says something about us, again, because of the size of the vessel. These are intimate, absolutely beautiful yachts. And the thing I love about my fleet is they're all identical. So if you're going on our Greek cruise next year on the Navigator, this is on the Voyager. It's going to be identical. The ship's going to be identical, which is wonderful for past guests because they know the ship inside and out. And then personalized service. I just have to talk about this really quickly because um, I believe our staff, it's almost a 1-to-1 guest to staff ratio, by the way. I believe our staff are just absolutely incredible. And I'm sure you hear other companies talk about their staff and all that, and employees, but there's something different about our staff. I mean, they're absolutely fabulous. I'll give you a quick example. I happened to sail to Antarctica with my brother-in-law, and this was back in November of last year, 23. And my brother-in-law and his wife ended up going on a cruise just recently, about a month and a half ago. And John he basically had texted me from the ship because he every night before dinner, maybe a glass of wine, but usually in Manhattan, he got on the ship, same ship, and there happened to be the bartender. And when he walked up to the bartender in the Dome Lounge, which I'm going to show you in a minute, truly, he said to him, he said, "Mr. John, welcome back. What kind of Manhattan would you like?" This is 9 months later. So, there's something to be said about that. But the staff, I just give them just absolute kudos. They're so, so phenomenal. So the nice thing about Atlas, one of the nice things about it is I would say always included. We do free cultural immersions. Our dining venues there's no charge. As John mentioned, we do have the Jasper Grill, which is our steakhouse. Weather dependent, it's outdoors, but there's no charge for that. And we have unlimited beverages, including all the fine wines, the spirits, craft beers that we have on board our vessels. We have free open bars and lounges, including 24-hour bar service with specialty canopies. So, say if you want a glass of wine or something in your cabin, just pick up the phone, and it probably will be there within 5 minutes. So we do that. Then we do have stocked in-room mini bars where, again, if soda's your choice, or water, or again, wine or whatever, that's restocked. We do an afternoon high tea pretty much every day, and those are fabulous. And again, that's all complimentary. We have specialty coffees, champagne. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but 24-hour room service. But really, L'Occitane is our bath amenities. They do our bath amenities, and they also manage our spa. So that's pretty cool. But the biggest thing right here, when you look at it, is free prepaid gratuities. So you basically do not have to pay for anything on the vessel other than obviously the gift shop or uh, uh, the spa. That's it. Now, we don't include excursions in every sailing. Actually, we don't any of the sailings. We do have some excursions, and that's the only other out of pocket that you have. So, again, it's pretty much always included at Atlas Ocean Voyages. We do, like I said, I just wanted to do this Epicurean expeditions that we have, where we do hosted tasting wines and things of that nature. But this is the vessel that you'll be sailing on. It's the World Voyagers. And I mentioned before, all three of my vessels are identical. So the hardware is the same, and they're absolutely gorgeous. They have beautiful lines. And the thing about us, for being a small expedition product, we do have a lot of outdoor space, which is pretty rare because keep in mind, all three of our vessels are in Antarctica for 5.5 months out of the year. But it's really still nice. I mean, you could go out on the deck even when we're in Antarctica. So, but I'll get through a little. I just want to walk you through some of the things that we have on the ship. But I do want to kind of address what John had said. He had talked about we really only have 4 decks that's there's activity. Deck 4 is really the main deck, and that's where you'll see Paula's Pantry and our restaurants and things of that nature. But most on deck 5 and deck 6, those are all cabins. And then on deck 7 is where you'll experience Paula's, or I'm sorry, the Dome Lounge. So pretty small in nature. We do have a few cabins down on deck 3. They only have a picture window, so but they're beautiful. I think I have a picture of one. So this basically is your sanctuary at sea. The thing I love about all of our vessels, and I don't care if you're in the smallest cabin or one of our suites, everything is included in all. They're all the same. Everything you get. The only difference is in our suites, you get butler service, but that's it. The bathrooms, the marble bathrooms are beautiful. The showers are huge and amazing. In-room mini bars, and I've again touched on this, but the espresso coffee, and that's actually in your room. So, and the bathrobes and all that. But the point I'm trying to make is that every single cabin on the vessel has this as part of their accommodations. So I want to just talk really briefly. We only have 10 on the ship, but I know that the Greek cruise that we have for next year for you all, I mean, I believe, and John could probably correct me on this, but I believe we sold that out, I think, within 2 days of opening it up. But Navigator Suites, 465 square feet, and then the Discovery Suite, and then the Journey Suite. And again, we're obviously only have 10 of those, but they're absolutely beautiful, beautiful cabins. So a lion's share of our cabins are in category B1, B2, and A1 and A2. And if you saw it's on deck 5 and deck 6. Really good sized cabins, 270 square feet, and these are located on deck 5 and deck 6. As you can see, that does have a veranda, and again, just very, very comfortable, and quite honestly, quite a bit of room. So very, very, and I just love the lines and everything, the way the ships are decorated. So the only difference between the Voyager, the Navigator, or the Traveler is internally. So, like I said, all of the hardware is the same. Now, if you notice, this is 270 square feet, and they all have balconies. Now, when you get into the Horizon category A1 and A2, it's a little bit different. So you still have 270 square feet, but if you notice, there is more living space because there is no balcony. And I'll touch on that in 1 second. So it gives you about 56 more square feet of living space. So for those that don't want to sit out on a balcony, this is fine. This is great. They're beautiful, beautiful staterooms. All you do is push a button and the window goes halfway down. And I've got a picture of John here modeling for one of our suites, or sorry, one of our A1 or A2s. As you can see, it really acts like a balcony, to be honest with you, and it's just wonderful. So if it happens to be inclement weather, you just push the button and the window goes up. But very prevalent, as John had mentioned, in the river cruise segment. And then we have the Adventure Ocean View, which I talked about, 183 square feet, and I believe we have 8 of these. This is more of an entry-level cabin for those that want to do that. So let me just kind of walk you through some of our lounges. John had mentioned we do have a couple lounges on board. The Atlas Lounge is a beautiful, beautiful room. This is the first point of where destination for you when you board the vessel. You'll board the vessel, you'll sit down, we'll have staff members come over to you and just kind of describe the whole vessel, the ships, and check your paperwork, and then they'll escort you up to your stateroom. The Dome Observation Lounge, this is really very, very active. It's on deck 7. It's got 280-degree full view of floor to ceiling windows, absolutely stunning, stunning views of the ocean and where we're going. And this is where we hold our high tea typically. And this also is pretty much, it's very active in the evening. We do have singers, if we're in a port overnight or late night, sometimes we'll bring on local entertainment, but just a beautiful, beautiful lounge. This is in addition, obviously, to the Atlas Lounge. We do have an auditorium, and they're beautiful, very comfortable seats. and you'll find that we'll do some movies here. We have some lectures that will come on board. So all 192 guests they can accommodate them all at one time. So very beautiful. This is on deck 4, and it's all the way forward at the bow. Let me just talk a little bit about, we do have a couple dining venues. Our main dining room, beautiful windows, basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner is served. It's open seating for all breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just to kind of give you an idea. And basically, it's at dinner, it's a buffet for breakfast and lunch. Although for breakfast, you could do cook to order. Whatever you want, eggs or whatever. But beautiful, beautiful. It goes from the starboard side to the port side. Very beautiful. Now we have an extension to the main dining room, and that's basically this is kind of our al fresco. It's again, weather permitting in warmer destinations, it'll be open. Quite honestly, it was open when I went to Antarctica last year for at least one day. But this is a great place for breakfast, lunch, and dinner also. It seats about 40 guests or 45 guests, but it sits aft. Some beautiful, stunning views of either leaving port or coming into a port. It's really quite nice. And then we do have Paula's Pantry. So I know John touched on this, but Paula's Pantry is a very cool idea. It's basically a to-go. So say if you don't get up early enough to have breakfast, go to Paula's Pantry. You can get your specialty coffee. You can get freshly baked goods, donuts, muffins, whatever. A little later in the day, like after 11:30, then you can experience some, wonderful, beautiful sandwiches. Again, but also as John said, it's kind of like a Starbucks at sea, but it's very, very popular. And as I mentioned before, it's 6:30 till 6 p.m. at night. And again, it's right on deck 4, right behind the reception area. So very, very convenient. And this is what John had talked about also, again, weather dependent. That's, I'm sorry, it's Navigator, but it's the Traveler also. It's identical. So then we do have our Sea Spa by L'Occitane, smaller spa, but I got to tell you, it's absolutely awesome. That would be the first thing you should do when you come on board, is you should book that right away. And some just great services that we have in there. And then we also have a health and wellness program that we have. Maybe you want to do some yoga on the deck, in the back, or inside. We do have a fitness center. It serves its purpose, quite honestly. So it's small, but again, it's something that's quite nice. And again, you have just beautiful views of the ocean. And then we do have a pool and hot tubs on all 3 of our vessels. So that's very, very nice, obviously, especially when you're in warm weather destinations. And then on the top deck there, you see that's more for walking. You can jog on top on that. It's exactly, I believe, 14 laps, I think, for a mile. So just a FYI. We do bring on visiting vintners once in a while if you're into wine, local winemakers and things of that nature. And then we do some cultural immersions, both Epicurean, cultural, or even some, well, we don't do it for Antarctica because obviously there's no landings in Antarctica. So let's address, I want to talk a little bit about the itinerary because that's obviously why we're here. This is a great itinerary that they selected. This is a 10-day cruise, 10-night cruise, 10-day, 11-day cruise, 10-night. And it's Iceland to Lisbon, Portugal. And so you start off in Waterford, then go to La Rochelle, and then, of course, Bordeaux and Bilboa, and then Gijón and Lisbon. So let me just kind of walk you through a couple of those. Obviously, Dublin is the capital of Ireland and very cosmopolitan city. It's a great, I would recommend that if you could go prior, maybe even on the cruise prior, but if you could go prior to spend a couple days, obviously in Dublin, it's just a beautiful, beautiful city. Of course, you have the Guinness storehouse and all of that, the gravity bars and things of that nature. And then you actually are then you get into Waterford. Obviously, we know what Waterford's all about. Waterford Crystal, just beautiful, beautiful area. The fishery harbors that they have on board. There's on land. It's really awesome. 13th century Viking tower and things of that nature. But this is a great destination. And as I mentioned early on, this is just an absolutely great itinerary. Then what you get to do is you get to relax because the next day you'll be at sea, which is awesome. So you can enjoy the vessel, you can enjoy the ship, you can enjoy the lounges, just read a book if you want, whatever. But the thing I know, especially with the MOAA signature uh, trips, obviously you all have a common interest, and I find that even when I have sailed on my product, that quite honestly, there's so many friendships, long-standing friendships that start on board, and again, take advantage of the day at sea. It's just really quite nice, and it's just a bit of a break. And then you get to go to La Rochelle, France, which is within the Bay of Biscay. La Rochelle it's rich with history, architecture. It's just a fabulous. From the Knights of Templar to the German U-boats from World War II. Again, this is a destination, and you'll be there from 10 a.m. to looks like 7 p.m. And I meant to mention on Waterford, it looks like you'll be there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's it's a good day. Um, and then after that, we'll go to Bordeaux, and obviously Bordeaux with the wines and things of that nature. Absolutely beautiful city. I absolutely love it. I could spend a week here, but you get to at least spend 2 days there because we are in Bordeaux. We arrive at what day would it be on Monday, I believe it is, and we arrive at 8 a.m. But you do not leave until Tuesday afternoon at 5 p.m. So you can get out, enjoy, maybe do couple shore excursions, what have you. But just a great, great destination. And then Bilbao, which is on the northern edge of the Iberian Peninsula. Um, it's a city, again, with historic ties, beautiful canals. It kind of reminds me a little bit, quite honestly, of Amsterdam with the canals. But it's just a lot of beautiful gardens. So it's really a great destination. You'll be there from 11 a.m. till roughly 9 p.m. So it's a great place. Maybe you can have dinner on the vessel, or maybe have dinner in the city itself, and come back on the ship, and just be back by 9 o'clock, and then you get to experience the destination for sure. And then again, we don't go to sea yet, so then we go to Gijón, which I don't know. I have not been to Gijón, but I know it's the ruins of the Roman baths and things of that nature. But it is interesting, though. I was talking to somebody in our office, and they talk about the cider production and culture and things of that nature, and also the botanical gardens, which are quite beautiful. You'll be there from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then again, let's get back to sea. You're able to um, enjoy the ship just as you have on the third day when you get on board the vessel. And then, of course, you arrive into Lisbon. I believe it arrives at 11 a.m. So you'll overnight on the ship, which is wonderful. So it gives you a chance to visit this absolutely beautiful, beautiful city. So that's nice that you'll be able to do that and really take in the culture, the restaurants, fabulous restaurants, and quite a few when I was there one time. Quite a few rooftop bars, beautiful views of the city. So um, just I thought I kind of wanted to walk you through that. Um, if I can just address a couple more things on the vessel itself. I know John had talked about um, just how small it is, and I know I talked a little bit about the relationships that people have and the new friendships that they have on board. But it's so easy to navigate. You've got basically, as I mentioned, four decks, really. And it's wonderful because and as John mentioned before, I don't think I've ever taken the elevator when I've been on any one of my cruises. It's just really easy. Deck four is the main area, and you're either going up or you're going down. But there's really no reason to go down, quite honestly. But it's deck four, and you just go up a couple flights. So it's just very, very easy to navigate. And again, the ship itself, and I cannot say enough about it because it's the vessel that you're going on is our newest vessel, which just came out last November, and that's where I sailed to Antarctica when I was on the vessel. So we do obviously recognize the military, and we have a military edge program. And I will give this up to John because John is a great negotiator, and we've already built this into the price. But again, if this is a cruise you cannot make, keep us in mind for any future cruises because we do have a military edge program that savings up to 20% in some cases. So take advantage of it. You know, we really appreciate your service, and so that's the least we can do. So it's just a great program that we have. John, John, I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I think but we do have a membership program basically. So this is a loyalty plan that we have. So maybe some of you that maybe they are going, if you're going on individually before the sailing, or if you're going to be part of the Greek Isle cruise, which we have next in 25, you can see some of the significant savings that you'll get, additional credits, loyalty things, and things of that nature, bottles of wine, and even though we, like I said before, complimentary onboard credits. So again, keep this in mind because hopefully you'll be sailing with Atlas Ocean Voyages over and over and over again.
Tim, if you wanted me to talk about it real quick while we're on it, just two things. First
Yeah.
off, on the military edge, to make sure that's clear, on the signature groups where we're holding the entire ship, um, the prices listed already include the military discount because when we went to Atlas, we said, hey, everyone on the ship's either going to be in the military or a friend or family of someone who's in the military. So rather than try to have the confusing process of here's the price, but if you're in the military, there's an additional discount. Everyone gets that military discount on either the Greek Isles in 2025 or Western Europe in 2026. Likewise, when we did the back-to-back option, so there was a back-to-back option in the Greek Isles, which were to continue after the 7-night round trip Athens. There was a sailing that was after that cruise, you could stay on the ship for another 9 days and you end up in Dubrovnik. That sailing's completely sold out, so that's no longer available. But if you go to the website, you can still see that pricing. Or if you go to the Western Europe website and you look at the pricing for the back-to-back option, which once again is the 10-night Reykjavik to Dublin, which is just the back-to-back option, and then the signature group, which is the 10-night Dublin to Lisbon. Since we're doing the group and it includes our group discount, it includes a back-to-back discount, they went ahead and included the military discount on that as well. So kind of what we want to say about the military edge is if you go on any Atlas cruise other than the signature group or the back-to-back option on the signature group, there is a military discount. For simplicity's sake, we've already included it on the signature groups. As far as the back-to-back program, the only really thing I wanted to mention about this was we have a signature group in 2025. We already have the signature group scheduled for 2026. I mentioned we're already talking about 2027, and it is our intention, once again, to do a river cruise every year as a signature group, to do an Atlas yacht cruise every year, and then do a land tour every other year. That is kind of the plan going forward for signature groups. So obviously your first cruise on Atlas, you won't, you're not going to be part of the past passenger program. But when you look at this, if you go on one Atlas, I think you're going to go on it every year. And so very quickly, particularly if you're doing 16 nights in 2025 because you're doing the back to back, and then you do 20 nights in 2026 because you're doing the back to back. You're almost, well, you're already at the bronze tier just after those 2 years. So we just wanted to make sure we brought this up. There is a past passenger program. We are going to do Atlas every year, at least for the foreseeable future. So it was important, I thought, to mention kind of the the past passenger program because I think a lot of people are going to go and then they're going to keep going year after year.
John, if I could just
Yeah,
interject on that, on the back-to-back thing. I mean, quite honestly, we were amazed. We knew you would get some on the back-to-back, but you filled it with, I think, 40. I'm not quite sure how many, but basically sold it out for the Greek Isles. So it's really important, as John mentioned before, and the theory is, quite honestly, if you're going over to Europe or wherever you're going, if you have an opportunity to do a back-to-back, take advantage of it. And to John's point, it would be great because we will do everything that we can to make sure that you have the same stateroom, so you
yeah.
don't have to, have our staff move because they would move the luggage if they had to. But this is a great opportunity for you to just stay in the same cabin. So
Yeah, I think everybody next year that we have on Greece who's doing the Dubrovnik, basically by doing the full 7 night with the 9 night, it's 16 nights, which basically just ends up being an Eastern Med cruise. Um, Everyone on that has the same stateroom except one person who wanted a suite. As Tim mentioned, with only 10 suites on board, those went the quickest. If you look at the price difference for a suite as compared to even a standard balcony, it is not the price increase you normally see. I'll just use comparison. And when we did the river cruise for Paris and Normandy, the suites were almost twice the price as the lead-in balcony. You'll notice that's not the case. But they wanted a suite. They couldn't get it on the first sailing, so it was worth it to them to be in like one of the deluxe balcony staterooms for the first 7 nights, and then they are moving to a suite on the second sailing. But other than that, we were able to get everybody on the same stateroom for both. Um, as our ship fills up, it gets a little more difficult when you keep in mind that the other one, in 60 days ish, was going to be open to the general public. I did want to mention one thing because it comes up a lot. We do realize there's 34,000 surviving spouses in MOAA, and that is the single supplement on Atlas. Unfortunately, on the Uniworld River cruises, the single supplement is 200%. So if it is $4,000 for a Riverview stateroom, double occupancy, single occupancy is 8,000. That is fairly standard in river cruises because of the limited number of staterooms they have. I'd have to look at Western Europe. I apologize, but I think it's about the same. The single supplement for the that AO stateroom was $1,500 for the Greek Isles cruise. So there is a single supplement. Obviously, there are benefits to being in a stateroom on your own, but it is a much more reasonable single supplement for the single travelers that we have in this
definitely,
group.
yep, for sure.
Okay. Any questions on anything that Tim went through? I know that we're almost at the hour where we try to keep these. Just a reminder that we've recorded this. I need to download this from Zoom and then upload it to, and I say me, someone here is going to download this from Zoom and then upload it to our YouTube channel. And as soon as that's done, we'll send everybody an email with a link to this webinar. I mentioned earlier that you're invited to bring friends and family along. If you would like to share this webinar with them when you get the email, feel free just to forward the email along to them. And then, Tim, if you go to the last slide, I know we were here for a second real quick, but everyone should have this. We'll include in the email I send tonight, I'll include, of course, our contact information. So a lot of times people will listen to these webinars and then later on they'll think of questions. Give us a call, drop us an email. We're here to answer any questions you might have. We'll also include links to the websites. As I mentioned, we only have a few cabins left on Greek Isles, but if you still want to go, I think we have 3 cabin categories available. We actually had somebody cancel, which opened up one of the Deck 6 E cabins. I think it's an E1 or an E2. We have a few cabins with the walkout balconies on deck 5, and then we have 2 of those AO staterooms left. So obviously, when we're talking about 8 staterooms, we don't have a lot of space on that. If you look at the Western Europe cruise, we have pretty much everything available. We still have suites. So once again, when you consider we have the entire ship, when you go to the website, there is the deck plan. You can literally pick out the exact stateroom you want. And we can pretty much guarantee you will get that or one right next to it, because we only have, a dozen or so staterooms sold so far. We'd love to have you join on this. I thought Tim did a great job talking about it. It is unique. If you've, a lot of people tell me they don't like ocean cruising, which is why we've done so many of the river cruises. That's why when we started out doing signature groups, we did river cruises. But it is more of a river cruise experience just because of the size of the ship. One of the great things about the river cruises is they're small, intimate vessels where, it's not only do you meet everyone on board the ship that are your fellow MOAA members and their guests are on the ship, but you meet the crew. You'll have the same bartender. There's a few bartenders on the ship that Tim talks about remembering your drink 9 months later. They'll certainly remember it 3 nights later. And it's just a great experience. Is you'll meet the crew. The staff is very friendly and amenable and everything. And then, of course, you're going to meet all your fellow MOAA members. And then one other thing I was going to mention, and I didn't want to interrupt when Tim talks about the back-to-back, the very first signature group we did in 2019, we only offered the 7-night signature cruise. And over half the people that went, air is expensive. And it's a long ways, even if you're on the East Coast. More so if you're traveling premium economy or business class. So if you're going to go all the way over there and you have the time. Anyway, to go back to the first signature group we did, we had over half the people that did, we had people doing, like in like a British Isles cruise before they did the river cruise, or I know we had a couple of couples that did like an Italy tour with Colette, which we learned very quickly is, a lot of people are going to go over and they're going to want to maximize their time, maximize that airfare cost. It's going to take you a day to get there and a day to get home. So, if you have the time, certainly something to consider. We'll have other options available if you don't want to do the back-to-back cruise that we're working on. I know some of you have heard about the villas we put together where after we did the Venice and Veneto cruise in September of this year, we offered a villa stay afterwards and those types of things. So we're working on those types of things, even 1 and 2 night pre-packages in Athens, for example, for Greek Isles. So absolutely, it's your vacation. We want to do whatever we can to make it as enjoyable as possible. So just let us know what we can do. That's why we're here. We talked about MOAA staff being on board, MOAA leadership and staff being on board. There will be somebody from MOAA Vacations on the ship as well. I do them. I know Steve's done some, Lisa's done some. We've had a couple of other, Mike's done them. And they are there. They're actually tour conductors, or that's kind of the industry term, but just call them cruise guides. So, for example, if I'm escorting a MOAA group, I am there, and like on a UWorld ship, I have a desk, and I'm in the lobby basically for the entirety of that cruise, and I'm there if you need anything to come and see us. The goal is to make this as enjoyable as possible. So not only do you have MOAA leadership and staff on there that gives you kind of access, to the people that are running the association that obviously you're very all, kind of engaged with, but you'll have somebody from MOAA Vacations there as well. All of us there, from the MOAA staff to the MOAA Vacation staff, to make sure your vacation is fun as possible. So, with that being said, get a hold of us. Let us know how we can help, be it on this cruise or any other cruise or tour or any other vacation plans that you might have. Tim, always a pleasure. Appreciate everything you do for us and for MOAA members and for the MOAA Association. I'm going to turn it over
Absolutely.
for last word.
Yeah, I appreciate it, John. And yeah, just be great to have you on board and have you become an Atlas Ocean Voyage traveler. So you'll
I'm a
love the
past
product.
passenger now. I'm purple.
What's that?
I said I'm now
That's true. Yeah,
an
exactly.
Atlas past passenger. So
Yeah. So again, it's a beautiful, beautiful product, and we'd love to have you on board.
yeah, let us know how we can help. Everyone, if we don't talk to you again, have a wonderful holiday season and a fantastic new year. I guess we actually have another webinar later this month. But have a great weekend and a great holiday season. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you very much. Thank you.